Be sure to call your parents to thank them for not stealing millions of dollars from you. And definitely keep your pinky out of Macaulay Culkin's pie. In the 1970s, 10-year-old Gary Coleman was dominating television by scrunching up his face and asking his fictional brother Willis to clarify what he was saying.
What you talking about, Willis?
His role as Arnold on Different Strokes was earning Coleman a reported paycheck of $100,000 per episode, which, wow, that's great, but it also helped lead to some familial strife. In 1990, the court shut down an attempt by the actor's adoptive mom, Sue, to be made his legal conservator. Sue had claimed that Gary's use of prescription drugs for the chronic kidney disease that affected his stature had a, quote, debilitating effect on him. At first glance, this may seem like a simple case of a mother worrying for her child, but it's more complicated than that. The previous year, Gary had filed a lawsuit against his mom and other defendants in which he accused her of misappropriating funds amounting to $1 million. He sued her again in February 1990, seeking $25,000 in damages and accusing her of making false claims in her filing for conservatorship. In the long run, Gary was granted $1.3 million, but thanks in part to the long, drawn-out court battle, his finances dwindled to a point where he had to work as a security guard in the late 90s to make ends meet. After a 5-year run that would produce more hit movies than many actors could achieve in a lifetime of work, Macaulay Culkin deservedly retired, for a while at least, at the ripe old age of 14. Hey, if you had $15 to $20 million to your name, you'd quit working too. In an interview years later with Larry King, Culkin revealed that at the time, his parents had legal guardianship over 20% of his money, while the rest was placed in a trust that couldn't be touched by anyone until his 18th birthday. But things got complicated when his mother, Patricia, and his father/manager, Kit, split up. A custody battle ensued, and rather than get his finances tied up in the middle of the ugly affair, Richie Rich chose to protect his assets by taking both of his parents' names off his account. As he later explained to Esquire, "It's always misconstrued that I emancipated myself from my parents. I legally took my parents' names off my trust fund and found an executor, someone who would look over my finances, just in case anyone wanted to stick their pinky in the pie." While it isn't known if his parents ever did anything as irresponsible as leaving him home alone, his relationship with Kit remained severed.
He's a man who had 7 kids, and now he has 4 grandkids, and none of them want anything to do with him.
Not only were the cast and creators of Modern Family showered with accolades during award season, it was a ratings giant as well. So when Ariel Winter landed her role on the show, it turned out to be an instant ticket to fame and fortune, something she'd been working towards since she began acting in commercials at 4 years old. But while her working life led to a hefty paycheck and shiny trophies, her home life bore no resemblance to the wacky but loving family that viewers came to love. In 2012, she was caught in a custody battle that saw her sister, Chanel Gray, quickly become her temporary legal guardian after she accused her mom, Chrysula Crystal Workman, of being emotionally and physically abusive.
It wasn't a supportive, loving home. I had a really tough time.
Workman dismissed the abuse allegations, but despite her objections, her control over Ariel's finances was restricted after Gray backed up her sister's claim, alleging that she'd been subjected to similar treatment from Workman. In 2014, Gray was formally named as Winter's legal guardian, while her father was given control of her ever-growing finances. The next year, Winter took it one step forward herself and became legally emancipated from both parents at 17 years old. It seems like everything is looking up for the young actor, but you'd be forgiven for diving back into Modern Family and pretending that Phil and Claire Dunphy were her real mom and dad. While she also starred in her share of hit movies, Bynes shot to fame thanks to the comedy chops she showed on the shows All That and The Amanda Show. But her career began petering out in the late 2000s, and she soon became more known to the public for rumors of drug use and mental health episodes. As the result of one incident where she started a fire in a random stranger's driveway, she was placed into a conservatorship managed by her parents. Things took an even more extreme turn in 2014, when Amanda posted a series of tweets where she accused her father of being emotionally and sexually abusive, claims that he denied. Bynes later retracted her statement, but it didn't exactly help matters, since she tweeted, "My dad never did any of those things. The microchip in my brain made me say those things, but he's the one that ordered them to microchip me." Bynes has since claimed that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and has mostly left public life behind to focus on her mental health. In 2022, with the support of her mother, the conservatorship was lifted after no longer being deemed necessary. The sad case of Aaron Carter started off so bright. His brother Nick was a member of a little group called the Backstreet Boys, and apparently Aaron would look out at the legions of screaming fans as they performed and thought, yeah, I can do that too. His career was launched when he released his debut album at just 9 years old, and it took off into the stratosphere when his second album went triple platinum. The person piloting that rocket ship to fame was Aaron's mother, Jane, but the trip to the stars turned out to be a rocky ride. In 2003, 16-year-old Aaron told his mother that her services would no longer be required after it was alleged that she had withdrawn $100,000 from his bank account without his consent. Aaron later considered seeking legal emancipation, but while his relationship with his mother was eventually mended, the effect she had on his finances was far from over. Carter opened up about his situation in a 2016 interview with GQ, revealing that when he turned 18, he got hit with a bill for $4 million in taxes that his parents hadn't paid during his tween years, resulting in him filing for bankruptcy. Despite getting a fresh start financially, when Carter died in 2022, he reportedly still owed $241,000 in taxes. The only situation on our list that spawned a social media movement, Britney Spears' meteoric rise and later mental health episodes, have been well documented to say the least. After being placed on a psychiatric hold in 2008, Britney's father, Jamie, was granted a temporary conservatorship over her estate, a lofty responsibility since it's reported that she was bringing in upwards of $110 million annually. But that temporary conservatorship later became permanent, despite Jamie not being on good terms with his daughter. In February 2021, a documentary titled Framing Britney Spears chronicled the entire conservatorship saga, and fans were inspired to take up the cause for their favorite pop star, launching the Free Britney movement. Buoyed by public support, Britney sought to end the conservatorship later that year, telling the courts in a statement, "I just want my life back, and it's been 13 years, and it's enough. It's been a long time since I've owned my money, and it's my wish and my dream for all of this to end without being tested." The conservatorship was finally terminated in November 2021, but Britney and Jamie apparently couldn't get enough of the inside of a courtroom. The two continued to battle it out in court over attorney's fees and alleged mismanagement until they reached a settlement in 2024. While other kids her age were focusing on boring things like school and puberty, LeAnn Rimes was churning out albums. Her third one, Blue, was a runaway success, granting her worldwide fame, in addition to her becoming one of the youngest Grammy winners in history. When all was said and done, the album had sold 8 million copies worldwide, and Rimes was a bona fide star before she even got her learner's permit. But if you're catching on to the pattern here in this video, you'll know that there was trouble on the horizon. In May 2000, the singer filed a lawsuit against her father, Wilbur C. Rimes, and former co-manager Lyle Walker, whom she accused of misappropriating more than $7 million of her earnings. Wilbur then responded with the legal equivalent of saying "nah," denying the claims, and filing a countersuit later that year. Wilbur claimed that he was merely a responsible parent to a reckless teenager, claiming that LeAnn had totaled an expensive Bentley and spent too much money on her hair. In the end, however, the two reached a settlement in the courtroom, and an emotional one in their personal lives, as father and daughter reportedly reconciled.
I just wanted my dad that coached my softball team back. I didn't want him to be my manager anymore.
A movie star getting caught up in the Hollywood party scene isn't exactly shocking, but when that star happens to be 12 years old at the time, it becomes even more disturbing. That was the case for former child star turned grown-up star Drew Barrymore, and to make the whole thing even more depressing, her mother played a role in her spiraling. Drew's father, John, and her mother, Jade, divorced when the ET star was young, so Jade raised Drew on her own. But according to the actor, she wasn't exactly motherly. The pair often went to parties together, including at New York's infamous nightclub, Studio 54, where Drew started using drugs. After receiving treatment at a rehab facility at the depressingly young age of 12, Drew was legally emancipated from her mom 2 years later. The duo remained unsurprisingly estranged for a long time. Apparently, time and doing enough romantic comedies with Adam Sandler heals all wounds, and they've since mended their relationship. Compared to some others in this video, Mischa Barton was practically ancient when she rose to fame on the OC, but you're still legally a child at 17, and she was undoubtedly a star, so she makes the cut. Even after the series ended in 2006, Barton was able to command paychecks of up to $100,000 for appearances in events outside of the US, in addition to continuing her acting career. But in 2015, Mischa must have realized that things weren't adding up, and in April, she filed a lawsuit against her mother and talent agent, Nuala Quinn Barton, for mishandling her finances. Mischa claimed that Nuala had leveraged her fame to run her own profit-driven ventures and had defrauded her of acting fees, referring to her in the paperwork as, quote, a greedy stage mother. In March 2016, Mischa dropped the case against her mom, but she did so without prejudice, legal jargon that essentially gives her the opportunity to pursue it again in the future. Sure, it's likely that 90% of people today wouldn't know who Jackie Coogan was, but he's the only entry here that has a law named after him. So in your face, Macaulay Culkin. Coogan came into the spotlight as the star of Charlie Chaplin's 1921 movie, The Kid. And when he was 10, he incorporated Jackie Coogan Productions, a company that saw him earn up to $4 million as a minor. That's a pretty good chunk of change. Even more so when you realize that when adjusted for inflation, it's equal to over $65 million today. In April 1938, 23-year-old Jackie took his mom LeAnn and his stepfather to court over withheld earnings, saying that the $4 million he claimed to have earned was withheld and trickled out to him with a $6.50 weekly allowance. And even that stopped when he turned 21. In the end, Jackie was only awarded a meager $126,000, a sizable amount of money, but also a far cry from his initial request. Jackie's case led to the establishment of the Coogan Law a year later, which seeks to protect the earnings of minors in the acting industry.